It doesn't exist. It's not existent. What the hell does that mean? Seriously, what does failure mean? It doesn't exist. It's a figment of your imagination.
The fear of failing is something that can prevent people from even starting something they desire to do. This fear is not simply related to the action of failing. There are several underlying thoughts that contribute to this negative feeling. Today, I would like to go over the components of this fear, why they happen, and discuss ways to overcome them. Once again, I would like to thank PowerSquire for the video idea. This video will also serve as an unofficial continuation of my discussion on setting goals and changing your mindset. I'll leave a link to it in the description if you haven't watched it before. But before I get into this topic, I just want to give a couple of updates. By the end of the week, I will have the Discord and Destiny clan up and joinable. If you are interested, you can join one or both. I will leave links to find them in my next upload. Now, let's get into why we are so terrified of failing. This is pretty straightforward, but it still must be talked about. Our fear of failure originates from us focusing on the idea of failing. When we are trying to work on our goals, we will constantly think about a future scenario where we do not succeed. This can prevent us from making consistent progress on our endeavors, because we let the thought of failing harm our productivity and dedication. Usually, these thoughts will appear during moments of stress, discomfort, or if anything doesn't go our way. The culprit of all of these negative thoughts is obviously our minds. During challenging moments, our minds are trying to get us out of an uncomfortable situation. In order to do this, our minds drill these negative thoughts into us, that we are going to fail. As a result, we can't help but focus on these harmful ideas, and a lot of times, it makes us get out of the situation. But now, while you may feel comfortable, you just quit at that moment. You let your mind win. The key is to remember that the actual challenge didn't make you quit. It was the thought of failing that demotivated you. With that said, let's talk about how we can combat these worries and stay focused. First, when we understand what these thoughts of failing actually are, we can create a direct plan of defense. When you think about failing, it is usually not failing at what you are currently doing. It is failing at the very end, when the deadline you set for yourself has passed. That could be years in the future, and yet it still bothers you. To overcome this, try your absolute hardest to be present and focus on now. Center your thoughts around your day, not this month or this year. When we think too far in the future, our goals seem impossible. But when we ground ourselves into the present, it doesn't seem so unreachable. With that said, make sure you have tangible tasks you can accomplish each day that fulfill your larger ambition. This will benefit you greatly for 3 reasons. 1, obviously, you will actually make progress on your goals. 2, it will generate confidence within you as the days pass on. The more consistent you are, the less your goals will seem unattainable, and therefore, the thought of failing will slowly fade away. But if it does come, you'll have a shield ready. You'll be able to say, the future doesn't matter. All I can do right now is what I have planned out for the day. If I accomplish that, then I have succeeded. In summary, the actual thought of failing can be the most destructive in your journey, so prioritize learning how you can best lessen its impact. You probably expected this would come up during the video. In my opinion, the fear of judgment is almost synonymous with the fear of failing. We connect the fear of losing to so many underlying scenarios centered around being judged. As a refresher, I would like to go over some of these examples and then discuss how we can overcome them. In general, we get scared of others' opinions on our work and progress. We don't like when we become the center of a critique and are vulnerable to criticism. Similarly, we fear criticism itself. We don't want to hear what we aren't doing right, or if something we produced didn't meet a high standard. On the same note, we absolutely despise receiving hate. This is not the same as criticism, and I will go into why soon. But seeing someone angrily talk about us does not bring any positivity to our lives. Most of all, we fear failing and being ridiculed for it. The thought of reaching the end and losing only to be shamed by our peers is a scenario that might terrify people into never launching a project. Before I talk about how to beat this, it's important to figure out where this fear comes from. I believe it originates from an unhealthy dependency that we form on the reception we get from our peers on our work. Let me explain. Especially early on, you might see your work not produce any tangible results. I talked a lot about this in my goals video, so I won't go into detail on this, but you get the idea. It is natural to want praise and admiration for our dedication, but that doesn't mean it's right. You cannot become reliant on validation from others to keep pushing towards your goals. It is basically a gamble for your happiness. You might get praise, but you will also get negativity, which can come in many different forms. It's not easy to avoid or completely block out, but I think by looking at outside critiques differently, you can lose that fear of judgment. I look at it from a value perspective. Assess what opinions provide value to your path and which are simply hurting your progress. Criticism is important, but you must be able to separate an honest judgment with a projection of hate. Here's the truth, and this has been said many times before, but I will say it again. Hating comes from insecurity and jealousy. People who take time out of their day to put negativity on you have nothing better to do with their lives than hurt someone else's. You simply cannot let them instill a fear of failing and being shamed within you. They are not criticizing you for messing up. They are so jealous of your courage to take a risk in life that they must try to pull you down to their level. Don't let them. Let the right judgment come through, and let the hating go out the other ear. Free yourself from the fear of criticism, and you will take another step towards beating the fear of failure. For the final part, I'm going to flip this discussion around. I want to explain why I believe you really can't fail at anything long term. Believing this will definitely help you in beating that fear of doing a ton of work, but eventually admitting defeat in the end. A lot of this might seem like I'm contradicting myself and my points from the previous two parts, but just hear me out. While I said not to think about long-term failure, let's actually consider this scenario, because we have a purpose to do so. I'll use myself as an example. Let's say we jump to January 2023, which would be the 2-year mark that I set for myself back in January of this year. Creating content doesn't materialize into something I can do long term, and I accept that I should stop and move on. Did I really fail? In my opinion, absolutely not. Quite the opposite. Even though I wouldn't continue my ambition to create content, there would still be 2 years of providing value to people to show for my persistence. I'm not trying to act like I'm saving lives, but I think I'm justified in saying that I've been able to positively influence a respectable number of people so far in my journey. With that said, can I say that I failed when I helped people along the way? How could I? That's all I could really ask for. A chance to spread information and thoughts. On top of that, I had that opportunity for 2 years. I got to be a real content creator. How many people can say that? It doesn't matter if I got millions of people to join my community. I succeeded in creating a community in the first place. It's about the experience. The enjoyment of the process outweighs the feeling of failing at the end if it doesn't work out. If you enjoy the journey, create any level of impact, and end it off as a better person, you didn't fail. Believing this won't make achieving your goals a certainty, but it will serve as another tool to use against the fear of failure.
The only way it's a failure on Monday is if you decide to not progress from that. So to me, that's why failure is not existent. Because, if I fail today, okay, I'm going to learn something from that failure and I'm going to try again on Tuesday.
To close, I will reiterate the points I made throughout this video. First, we must try our hardest to break the habit of focusing on the thought of failing. Instead of worrying about the future, prioritize the present and see what you can do about your ambitions today. Next, we need to be able to divide criticism and hate from our peers. Do not let the thought of being shamed for failing prevent you from ever trying. This shame is probably coming from people who resent you for having the bravery to even try at all. Finally, enjoy the experience. If you grow from your journey, you won't be considered a failure if if you don't succeed at the end. One more thing. Always remember to stick it out until the end. It will get hard, but you might as well see it through and finish what you started. That is going to wrap up my take on overcoming the fear of failure. If you have any thoughts about the video or suggestions for future uploads, feel free to leave them in the comments. Also, since I am making a Destiny clan, I wouldn't mind any suggestions for a clan name, if you have any. As always, this has been Dark Horse, and I will see you in the next video.
Do right activity.